Okay, so we're about to dive into something that's, well, it's pretty terrifying. How can someone who looks like the picture of health, they exercise, they feel great, how can they be walking around with a ticking time bomb in their chest?
I mean, think about that for a second. That one sentence just completely shatters everything we think we know about what healthy looks and feels like. It's a really chilling thought for sure. But here's the thing, understanding why this happens, that's the absolute key to stopping it.
Right. So the big question is, how is this even possible? How can our own bodies betray us so silently? To figure that out, we've got to go deep inside, right into the engine room, and take a look at the incredible mechanics of the heart itself. And really, it all boils down to this kind of cruel twist in our own biology. See, your body is an incredible machine. It's so adaptable that it can hide a massive, like 90% blockage in a supercritical artery. And you'd never know. Your blood flow stays perfect, your energy is high, right up until the very moment it all goes wrong.
Okay, now let's talk about the shocking reality of this paradox because these numbers they're staggering. For a full 50% of men with underlying heart disease, the very first symptom they have isn't chest pain or getting winded, it's sudden death.
And for women, it's even worse. That number jumps to 64%. I mean, this isn't some rare thing. It's a silent epidemic hiding in plain sight. It's affecting people who felt perfectly fine, literally until the very second they didn't.
So, to really get how this can happen, we need to look at the engine itself, right? The heart. It's this relentless muscle, and it is so hungry for oxygen. To get all that fuel, it depends on this delicate network of pipelines wrapped around it, and we call them the coronary arteries. And a great way to think about these arteries is like the root system of a tree. If you get a blockage in a tiny twig, maybe you just lose a leaf. But if you get a blockage in the main trunk, the whole tree can come crashing down. Well, the LAD artery, that's the trunk. It feeds the heart's main pumping chamber, and a blockage there is so often fatal that it's earned this really grim nickname, the Widowmaker. Okay, so how on earth does this critical fuel line get blocked in someone who's active and feels totally healthy? Well, the great deception, the trick, it all starts at a microscopic level. It begins with just a little bit of damage to the smooth inner lining of the artery. It's basically a three-step process. First, you've got things like high blood pressure or smoking. They act like sandpaper, creating these tiny little tears in that smooth lining. Step two, your body, trying to be helpful, sends in LDL cholesterol to act like spackle to patch up the hole. And then finally, your immune cells show up to check out the repair job. They eat up the cholesterol, and this whole mushy mix hardens into what we call plaque. And that, right there, is atherosclerosis. Okay. Now listen up, because this next part is this single most important concept in this whole explainer. This is the big aha moment. We all picture plaque building up like gunk in a drain pipe, right? Clogging it from the inside, making the hole smaller and smaller. But that's not what happens. As that plaque grows, the artery wall itself actually stretches outward to make room for it. It's a process called positive remodeling, and it keeps the channel for your blood wide open. And that is how you can have a massive 90% blockage with absolutely zero symptoms, because the blood is still flowing just fine. So, if the slow buildup isn't the thing that causes the heart attack, what is it? What flips the switch? Well, the real danger isn't that big, stable, hardened plaque. It's the small, unstable, soft plaque. The best way to picture it is like a little blister under the skin of your artery, just filled with this inflammatory gunk, and it's just waiting to pop. And when that blister pops, it can lead to two very different kinds of heart attacks. On the left here, you've got a type 1 event. This is basically a plumbing disaster. That soft plaque blister bursts, your body totally panics, and forms a huge blood clot to seal what it thinks is a wound, and bam, that clot instantly blocks the artery. Now, a type 2 event, over on the right, that's a completely different animal. It's a supply and demand problem, and you see it a lot in athletes. Yeah, let's take a look at Robert's story. He's a fit guy, a runner, and he's got a 50% blockage he doesn't know about. Now, sitting on the couch, that's no big deal. But when he's in the middle of a race, his heart is screaming for a fire hose worth of blood. But that partially blocked artery, it can only deliver a trickle, like a garden hose. The demand completely outstrips the supply, and his heart muscles starts to suffocate and die. That is a type 2 heart attack. Okay, but it's not all bad news. In fact, here's something pretty amazing. Your heart has a secret backup system. Over many years, if it senses a slow, chronic blockage, it can actually start to build its own natural bypasses. We call these collateral vessels. Just think of them as little side streets the heart builds to get around a long-term traffic jam on the main highway.
And this explains a really strange paradox, a weird advantage of getting older. A 70-year-old's heart has had decades to slowly build up this network of life-saving detours. But a 40-year-old who has a sudden plaque rupture, they just haven't had the time. For them, the highway suddenly shuts down and there are no side streets to take. So that leads to the crucial question, right? Can we actually encourage our bodies to build these life-saving backups? And the answer is a huge, resounding yes. It turns out that specific types of exercise, like sustained zone 2 cardio and high-intensity interval training, or HIIT, have been proven to stimulate the growth of this protective network. You are literally building the infrastructure that could one day save your own life.
But look, if an event does happen, you have to be able to recognize it. In the ER, there's a saying, time is muscle. Because after just 20 minutes of a blockage, irreversible damage starts. And the symptoms, they are not always what you see in the movies. Men often get that classic Hollywood crushing chest pain. But for women, it can be way more subtle. Things like extreme fatigue, shortness of breath, or just a sudden overwhelming sense of doom. Knowing these signs is absolutely critical.
All right, so we've laid out the problem. The whole goal here is to find the smoke before the entire house burns down. Your standard blood tests, they're good, but they only tell you if you have the ingredients for fire. They don't tell you if anything is actually burning. To do that, we need to actually look inside the arteries. And the great news is we have the technology to do exactly that. There's something called a CAC score. It's a quick 5-minute scan that measures the hardened, calcified plaque, the old, stable stuff. A score over 400 is a big warning sign, but even better is a CT angiogram. This thing is the ultimate early warning system because it can actually see that dangerous, soft, unstable plaque, those little blisters just waiting to pop. Now, of course, if they do find a blockage, doctors can go in and fix it. They can do a procedure called a PCI, where they basically inflate a tiny balloon to smash the plaque out of the way and then pop in a metal stent to keep the artery propped open. But, fixing the plumbing after it breaks isn't the best strategy, right? The real goal, the ultimate goal, is to prevent the fire from ever starting. So when you really look at it, the so-called healthy heart attack is almost always a tragedy of just not knowing. We've gone through the biology behind this silent threat, but the biggest takeaway, the thing I really want you to remember, is that you don't have to be in the dark anymore. So that leaves us with one final question. Don't just guess that you're healthy. Are you using the technology that's available right now to actually know?